Hi everyone. Hi. Feel free to use the chat and introduce yourself, saying your name and where you're from. I'll just wait another minute for everyone to join in. Oh, the chat is not working. Hold on a sec. Let's see what I can do. Hold on a sec.
Jennifer, I've just turned it on.
Okay, thank you. It should all work for everyone now. Hi everyone. It's nice to see that there's people from all around the world. We'll just give it another minute for everyone to join in. Okay, I think we'll start. We'll start now. So feel free to use the chat during the session. If you've got any questions to me, please use the Q&A so I can monitor that and answer any of your questions at the end. So my name is Jennifer, and I work in a secondary school in East Lancashire. I've been teaching for 11 years now, and I teach French and a bit of Spanish as well. So my session today is about translating. Translating is fun. And for those who are not in the UK, just to let you know a bit of background about that, it's only since we've got the new GCSE that translation is a skill that the students need to be able to do. So that's why obviously it's really important to make sure that we do some translation in class, but also to make it, as interactive as possible and as fun and as interesting as possible for our students. Feel free to email me at the end if you would like a copy of the PowerPoint, and you can follow me on Twitter at Miss Wozniak as well. So let's make a start. So in terms of translation, first of all, I don't know if you know that fantastic book. Okay, I've put a copy at the front of the slide, but I use it a lot because it is full of idioms. And actually, not only it's full of idioms, but there's also, as you can see on the screen, there are some examples where it's being translated literally, and then the real version in English. But if you turn the book around, then so on that side, it's all the French expressions that have been translated in English, first of all literally, and then the real version if you want. And on the other side, it's all the English expressions that have been translated into into French, and same thing, the real, well, the way you will say it, but also the literal version, which will make the students laugh, as you can imagine, as you can see some of the examples here. So if you've not come across that book, I really, encourage you to have a look at it. I use it quite a lot as a starter activity. I put some random ones on the board and ask first the students what they think it means. What do you think will be the English version of it? And they think it's just so funny. Yeah, you might want to have a look at that. I also use authentic resources a lot because it's really important. So, like things that I see. So here there are some examples of things that I've seen in France. I just just took some pictures of it, but there's loads on the internet, so you can find absolutely loads of it. And as you can see, some of it, that will make the students laugh, okay, especially your GCSE classes. And I've given my mother-in-law a trip to China. It's it's the intention that matters, and obviously with the when it started with the coronavirus and things like, it's very controversial, and the students like it, about the flowers, and you've got 50% off for your mistress, so something very controversial, but the students, enjoy, looking at it, and you can find an awful lot of them on the internet. I use also famous quotes a lot, and asking the students to translate it. The same thing is just like it has a purpose. They know that it's coming from somewhere. They know that it's real. And they enjoy looking at it, and there's always some words that they do recognize. So I encourage you to have a look at that, and starting some translation with little things like that. Okay, here actually it's one of the reading examples. So you might think, well, why on earth is it linked with translation? But even when we do like a reading activity, we always we always kind of ask them to go back and translate like a passage of it, even if we've used it as a reading example. And most of the time when you use the authentic material, the language is very complicated, and that could put your students off. So something that I use, and I'm sure that a lot of you use it already, it's the website called Wordle. So www.wordle.net. And what it does, so it's a generator, so you just copy your text into it, and it creates, as you can see on the screen, a cloud of words. So what's really good about that is that before I show that to my class, before I ask them to translate a passage from it, we just look at that word of that cloud of word, and we just start translating some of the words. But then when the students look at that, there's loads and loads of words that they know. They know visiter, they know réparer, they know bizarre, they know parler, they know prince, they know petit, they know aussi, avion, volcan, toujours. So many words here that the kids know, recognize, understand. And so I make them, translate as many as they can. You can ask them to do it in pairs, in groups, on their own. You can even do it as a competition, and give them a set amount of time, and how many of those words can you translate in 3 minutes, and things like that. But then when you ask them to study a text, then it's just so much easier for them, because they've done that previous work beforehand, and it's just helping, and it's going back to whatever we do to make sure that the students can access the work. So whatever scaffolding you put in place for your students in front of you. So as I said, Wordle.net might be a nice website. It's free as well, so you might want to look at that. Okay. Another idea for translation, something that works really well, is to provide text in the target language with 3 different translations in English, but only one is right. When you do that, be very careful, because in the past, I had some trainees who would use that activity, but then it was so obvious that the translation was not really difficult. It was very easy for the students to pick the right one. So just make sure that, you know, it's quite subtle, you know, the difference between the different sentences. It could be like, for example, with the tenses, that could be the difference. So all the words are the same. It's only the tense that is different, and that makes it a bit more, you know, challenging. So that could be, you know, an activity that you might want to try. Find the correct translation. I use that quite a lot in grammar, and it's an idea that I've seen from Martine Piet in one of the session that she did for my school many years ago, and it's something that I've used since then, and it's really, really useful. So I've got 1 to 10. So I've used the verb avoir, which is to have, and see in loads of different contexts. So I must have, I can have, I am going to have, I want to have, I should have, you know, I need to have. But it's making the students, you know, working on the grammar and finding that correct translation for each of them. And then what you can do is that you just have to change the verb, and you can reuse it and recycle that activity with as many verbs as possible. And by the end of it, my year 11 now, they know those tenses really, really well. So they know the difference between je devrais, je peux, je vais, je veux, and they can also use it accurately in their writing, in their speaking, but also when they translate. So it's an easy one to do with the grammar. The first letter translation is very easy as well. So you provide sentences in English for the students to translate into the target language. And then for each one, give the first letter of each word in the target language. So as you can see in my example, so by doing this, you can have a detention. So en faisant ça, tu peux avoir une retenue. And something it's bringing that a bit, sometimes the kids, you know, it's really important when you do some translation to make sure that your students do not translate word per word. And I say to them all the time, you need to look at the full sentence first before you start translating it. You know, before you pick up your pen, you just need to make sure you read that full passage first, and then sentence by sentence, because otherwise it doesn't make sense in English. And a lot of time I ask my students I said, read again what you've just said to me. And they read it, and I said, well, is that proper English? And they said, oh no, we wouldn't say it this way. So I said, well, then you really need to think about the kind of words you want to use. So sometimes, you know, to help the students translating, what you can do is to make sure that you've got the first letter of each word. And obviously you wouldn't do that all the time, but it's again, you know, what do you want to do to make sure that your students are then confident translating? So it's bringing that help and support as we go along. Collaborative translation is something that works really, really well. And students working in a small group of up to 4, but it can be, you know, smaller groups as well. And students need to translate different parts of the same text. And then they pass it on every single time. And each member of the group then needs to proofread each translated section with a specific focus. So someone might be looking at the adjectival agreement. Someone might be looking at, if I always use numbers, because, you know, I'm sure you've had that same experience with me. You teach number, you know, we teach number in year 7 when we've done it as well, you know, in primary. But then when it comes to year 10, year 11, they don't know how to say 70, 80, 90 in French anymore. And it's all over the place. So every time I do a bit of translation, even if I use a translation from a textbook or something like that, I always add some numbers in it as well, because it's something that I know my students struggle with, and they lose marks very, you know, in a stupid way, you know. And so I always make sure that, so someone could be in charge of numbers, someone could be in charge of the verbs, you know, and so on. But it's doing it together. The running translation, when I was a trainee at University of Cumbria, 11 or 12 years ago, I can't remember, it's something that we used to do, the running dictation. And it's something that where I was trained, it's something that was shown to me, that many years ago. But then, so you do the running dictation, but what you can do is the running translation that works the same way. So students work in pairs, and they take turns to go to a text that is in another part of the classroom or in the corridor, and they need to memorize each sentence, then going back to their partner, and they have to translate it on their piece of paper, and then they swap. Obviously, with COVID at the moment, what I do is that I've got my text on the board, on my whiteboard, in front of everyone. The students are still working in pairs, but they take turn. And so, like, for example, if person A starts, then they have to translate the text to person B, and person B has to write what person A is saying. But then every time I say changer, so swap, they have to, swap the translation. But I do it as a competition. So the first pair to finish the translation will win. So you can adapt it to make it COVID friendly. The auction activity, it's something that I've been shown that activity when I did my trainee many years ago. So this one, it's the auction. So it's where you put a sentence in English on the board, and then you've got the target language. However, the kids need to bet and tell you if they think the sentence is accurate or not accurate. So here, if you look at it, the sentence, it is not accurate, because we don't say au Espagne, we say en Espagne. But I know as a teacher that the students struggle with the in, translating the in French, because it can be dans, it can be en, it can be au, it can be a, it can be like so many options. And it's the more practice we do with things that we know the students struggle with, but the better it is. And here, because they have to bet, so they bet with fake money, they absolutely love it. And they need to tell me when they think it's not right, they need to tell me what is the problem. So sometimes, depending on the ability of your students, you might have one student to ask you where is the problem. So someone might identify that it's oh, but then you can ask someone else, well, what would be the right answer? And obviously there's loads of different ones. So some are correct, as I said, but some are not correct. And it's a nice way of doing translation, and something doesn't require a lot of planning and preparing for it. So something you might want to have a look at. Okay, but every time I always make sure that I put some things on the kind of structure, grammatical structure that I know the students will struggle with. The back-to-back translation, something I've been doing it for years, and it works really, really well. So you've got students working in pairs again. So you've got your student A and your student B. So your student A will face the board, and student B will have their back to the board, or at the moment with the situation, so they don't turn around, I just make them cover their eyes. And so on the board, what is really important is that you need to have your sentences in English and in the target language, okay? So the person facing the board can see both, okay? But obviously the person covering their eyes cannot see anything, okay? So the students facing the board will say a sentence in English, and the students who cannot see the board will have to translate back in the target language. But I'm sure here you can understand why it's important to have the English and the target language on the board, because we work in pairs. I cannot cut myself in 16 pieces and hear what everyone is saying. But by having the correct answer on the board, then person A will asking person B to translate, can check and can see if it's correct. Same thing here. Obviously, because person A is saying the sentence in English and person B has to translate in the target language, this is harder. So if you wanted to make it easier first, what you can ask person A to do is to say the target language and asking person B, who's not looking at the board, to translate in English. So you can do it both ways. But same thing, it's an activity that works really well. And same thing, you can adapt the language. So at the moment with my Year 7, it's very simple. But obviously with my Key Stage 4 classes, the language is more complex, so you can adapt it as well. Okay, for this activity, so every single student on their own, at the back of their book, I'm going to give them a set amount of time to translate some sentences in English at the back of their book. So those 3 sentences will not be in Spanish in their book. They will only be in English. So I'm going to give them a bit of time to translate those sentences in English. Then obviously we will check that it is correct, that the English is right, that they translated it right. And then what I'm going to do on the board, I'm going to put the Spanish, but with some gaps. And the students in front of them, they've got their book with the English version. So they need to look back at the English to be able to find the missing words in the target language. But what is really good by doing this activity, it's one showing to the students that they cannot just count. So here, word number 3 is missing, but in English, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be word number 3 because the word order is not always the same. So it's really important then to make sure that the students look again at that full sentence. So, as I said, they look at the English and they need to find the word in the target language. And then what I do is that every so many seconds, I change slide. So here, what I'm going to do, I'm going to put more blanks, more gaps in this. So it's exactly the same sentences, but there are more gaps. And they need to write the answers. Then again, there are even more gaps. And then we're going to go through the answers together as a class. But it's for them to be able to work both ways, and something, it's an activity that, a translating activity that will take a bit of time and will make the students, really think. I know we've all used 1 pen, 1 dice. If you have not, just really quickly, so students work in twos again, and they've got 2 different pieces of paper, 2 different sentences that they need to translate, okay? So here they had some French sentences that they had to translate into English. And in the past, before COVID, they had 1 pen in the middle of the table and 1 dice, okay? And the person, so person A will start, they'll get the pen and they start translating their sentences. But during that time, person B will roll the dice, and when they get, so some people like it when it's a 6, I always pick 3 because I like that number, but that's completely random and completely up to me. So the number doesn't really matter on the dice, but every time they do a certain, they roll a certain number, they grab the pen from the other person and start translating their own. However, with COVID, we can't share pens and we can't share dice and things like that. So now what I do is that I still do this activity because I love translating this way. But what I do is that they've got each a pen, and instead I've got an electronic dice on my board. So it's me controlling the dice all the time. Okay, so then here, the only thing that is going to be different is that obviously everyone, so person B is all going to swap at the same time. But at the end, you still end up with only 1 winner because they don't all translate at the same pace. So there's ways that we can adapt the activities we've always used to make them, COVID friendly. The paper chain is something, it's a translating activity that the students absolutely love. So what I do is that in pairs, again, they've got 2 pieces of paper, and it's important that there are 2 different colors, okay? So they've got a piece of paper with sentences in English, and they've got a piece of paper with sentences in the target language. Please note that those sentences do not match. So you will not find the translation in them, okay? But you've got a piece of paper with some sentences in English and a piece of paper with some sentences in the target language. What students need to do is that they need to cut the first one, okay? So here this one says, my grandpa is not silly, and they need to translate it in French, okay? When they've done it, I need to check, and if it's correct, with a glue stick, they need to make a circle with it, okay? But then what I want them to do, and that's why there's two different colors, is that I want them to alternate colors. So as you can see, sorry, my demo is not great. As you can see, you start a paper chain. But why am I asking them to alternate colors? Because, and I'm sure you've got exactly the same experience with your classes, if you ask students to translate, they would prefer translating the sentences in the target language into English and not the other way around, because it is harder to translate in the target language. You know, so by alternating the colors, it doesn't give them the choice, and they love doing this activity. So now, same thing, you might think, well, we still have to share. So now what I do, I still do this activity in terms of COVID, but what I do is that they got 2 scissors, 2 glue stick, and it's only one person who's responsible to, you know, stick the sentences together. And obviously, because they cannot run it to me for me to check the sentence, instead of writing their answers on a piece of paper, they're just writing on their mini whiteboard, and they just put it up. So every time, so I can really scan and say, yes, it's correct, no, it's not correct, and so on, or check your accent, or check your tense, or, you know, whatever you will do. So you can still use that activity. And it's really something that they love doing. The only little problem that it is, when it comes to Christmas, it's great because you've got really nice paper chains that you can use as displays, you know, in the classroom. But when it's not Christmas, the kids obviously want you to keep those little paper chains for a bit, and you've got loads everywhere. But it's a nice thing to do, and an activity that works really well with the students. The guided translation. I've seen that activity online. Someone posted an example on Twitter, and I've used it for the first time over lockdown, and it's something that worked really, really well. So my class had a paragraph that I wanted them to translate in Spanish, but on the other side, they had actually the translation, but all in a different order. So they had to look carefully at the English and find the Spanish in the text to make it, well, so that it would make a paragraph that would make sense. And it's something that worked really well, and it's easy to do. So same thing when you want to build that up, you know, with younger classes, it's something that you might want to try doing. The Tangled translation, I've seen that activity on Teach It Languages, and you've got a text, and you've got some words in French or in the target language and some words in English. So the first thing that the students have to do, they have to highlight or underline all the French words or French bits of the sentence, and then in the different color, the English. And then they have to do two translation. They have to translate then the full text in English and then the full text in the target language. But because there are some help in both languages, you know, they don't find it as difficult, or at least it's not that, because I think it is as difficult, but they feel that there's some help given by doing it this way. So the Tangled translation, it's something interesting that you might want to try. The team translation, so that I know that I've seen that on one blog that Gianfranco Conti has posted, and I use it quite a lot with doing verbs, practicing tenses. So I've recapped the present tense with my year 8 classes this year, and we did that as a team translation. So I had that on the board, and my class was split in two. So I had my team A and my team B. So whoever team would start, same thing, I've got that little interactive dice. You just roll the dice. So they've got 4. So they have to translate he finishes to me, okay? They've only got one go, Okay, and here I make sure that the pronunciation must be perfect. So I've got 2 people in a team to answer every single answer. And obviously I change the students all the time. So one needs to say it properly and one needs to write it properly. Okay. And then it will be team B. So we roll dice, we've done 3, they need to translate they love. And obviously it's the first one reaching the end that will win for the team, okay? And then usually I give, you know, a merit for the winning team or you know, whatever, you know, house points or whatever you are using in your school as a reward. But it's something that works really, really well. And something, just having a little interactive dice on the board makes the difference, and they love it because you ask them to say stop. It's not you saying stop, so they think they are in charge. And you know, kids are kids, and it's what they love. Okay, translated in 8. That's an activity that I saw when I went on the course, and I can't remember where it was, and apologies, you know, that I cannot name the person that I'm using that activity from, but it's something that works really, really well, and especially in Key Stage 4 when you've got longer text to translate. So the activity is called Translate in 8. Because there are 8 different things you're going to ask the students to do. But when you read it, as you can see, they only start translating when they are in stage 7. So it's just making them, so first you want them to read the text to understand what it is about. Then you want them to underline all the verbs. Then you want them to think about who is the person doing the action, okay? Then which tense is in each verb. Then have we got any negatives, you know, any object pronouns, because we know that the word order is different. Then asking them to highlight any words they really have no clue about, okay? And then it's only at that time that then you ask them to translate the text. So before that, we've all done so much work on it, and looking and asking all those questions to help them translate in a better way. And then what is really important, we know students are terrible at proofreading. They don't do it, or they just read at something and say, yeah, I've done it, but they've not paid attention to it. So making sure, give them the time to do it, and asking them, well, does it read well in English? Would that make sense if now I'm reading that to you? So it's an activity that works really, really well. I've never done it in Key Stage 3, but I don't think there's a reason why you couldn't. But I use it a lot in Key Stage 4. And what is interesting is that now my year 11s are used to it. So I don't even need to put that on the board. I just said traduire en 8, so translate in 8, and they know the 8. They know that it's gist, verb, person, tense, word order, unknowns, translate and read. So something, it's training them to do it. But it works the other way around. You've got the translate in 8, but in English into the target language. So something, asking them to do some work on the text before they start translating it. And what I do at the beginning, so when I give them that template, you know, I just put the text in the middle and they've got that in front of them, and they need to tick every time, you know, they've done one of the 8 stages. And as I said, then when they start being very confident with it, you can remove the support, and then by the end they can do it without any support, because they know the order. So translate in 8 is a really good strategy to use with translation, and I know in my experience it has worked really well with my classes. Okay. So, so delayed copying is also an activity that Gianfranco Conte has explained in one of his blogs. And the delayed copying is where you've got a sentence on your screen, and then the sentence will disappear, and then I use a little frog, and when the frog reaches the other side of the board, the kids need to have finished copying it. But I use it, I've slightly change that activity and call it the delayed translation. So it's the same principle, but here we've got the sentence in the target language, okay? So tengo dos hermanos y una hermana, and then it will just disappear. Oops. Okay, because it's all timed, I have to wait, but I don't have time to wait 20 seconds. So anyway, so the sentence disappear, and then instead of copying that into the target language, you can use the same activity by asking them to translate it. So it's something that you might want to do. So I've slightly changed it for translation. Another activity that works really well, it's the bomb or the treasure. So here you put whatever, you put the vocab that you want. It can be complex structures, it could be just bits of a sentence like I've done. And your class plays in teams. So they pick one. So let's say that someone pick je voudrais habiter. They have to tell me what it is in English. So I would like to leave. And that will give you, oh gosh, it's all moved on my PowerPoint. It will give them an amount of points, okay? But there are, as you can see, some bombs. So because what I don't like sometimes when using the competition is that you end up with a team having like 57 points and a team on 10 points. And whatever you do to help that team on 10 points, they're still not going to get to the others. And you don't want them to feel demotivated. So by doing those type of activities, until the very end, everything's possible. Everything can win. Everyone can win or everyone can lose, okay? So that's what I like. Blockbuster is also a great activity to use to translate. Here I use it more with the grammar, but you know, you could have sentences, you could have whatever you want. And if you click on blue, it's blue, or if you click on pink, it's pink. So the aim of the activity is that they need to go from one side to the other side without the other team blocking them. So same thing, they do it as a class, but it does encourage them. And the contribution is unbelievable because they want to win. You know, they're competitive. Then I don't know if you know those websites, Technologic. So Technologic, they've got actually 2 websites, and each website got 10 games that you can download for free, okay? And I use quite a lot to translate. So I'll just show you an example here. I've done it as a starter activity with year 10, just at the beginning of the lesson, nothing to do with what I was going to teach after, but you know, they would say, il pleut, it's raining, and that will give them 1 point. Ils veulent, they want 3 points. On va aller, we're going to, and it's all interactive. The only thing I've done is just to change the text, and all those wonderful animated PowerPoint slides are available on that website and that website. So in total, you've got 20 games for free that you can download and incorporate into your PowerPoint. So I strongly advise you to have a look at it, because you can use some of it to do some translation. The Wheel of Names as well, it's a free website, and same thing, you type whatever you want and it's spin, and the kids ask you when they want to stop, and then they have to do that translation. So same thing, you can just do it for single words, you can do it for chunk of words, or you can do it for full sentences, you can do it for anything, but that works really well. And it's online and it's free, so you might want to look at that. Okay, this one, so it's interactive. There's some music in the background here. I've closed, well, I didn't put the music on, but I've put the Mission Impossible music in the background. So in their book, my students need to write, so here there were 10 parts, so they need to write 1 to 10 in their books, and they've got 15 seconds on each slide to translate each part. So each part is on 1 slide, okay? So it goes like that, and in 20 seconds, it will just move to the next one and then move to the next one. And during that time, they just need to translate that bit of the text. So as I said, there's the music in the background, blah, 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 go back. And then there's a quick recap, okay, of the full text, and they need to check their answers in their book, okay? And then we are going to look at their answers. So here it was out of 2, the first bit. So hi, they will get 1 mark, and my name is Marion, and that will give them another mark. You know, but you can break it down, you know, the way you want. Okay. So that's a different way of doing a translation. But same thing, the kids, because there's a time limit. And it means that the kids, you know, sometimes when you ask them to do a translation, you know, they start staring into spaces, you know, they don't start straight away and things like that. But here, because that there's like in 15 seconds or 20 seconds, it's going to move to the next slide, you know, there's that sense of emergency of it, and the, you know, all, you know, doing it and all trying really hard. And as I said to them, even if you don't know the full thing, it doesn't matter. You will still get some marks for some bits of the sentence, like it is, you know, for the GCSE. So might be, it's on the PowerPoint anyway, so you'll be able to reuse it if you want, okay? Beat the mouse. So here it's very easy as well, and it's an interactive game where the students need to translate the sentence that is on the board before the mouse disappears. Okay, so it's all animated. So I was born, they need to say je suis né before the mouse disappears. So same thing, you can ask them to say it to you, or you can ask them to write it on the mini whiteboard, and so on. So go on and on, but you get the idea. Okay. Come on. Okay, and then last but not least, I'm just going to, hold on a sec, I'm just going to share something else with you. Okay, I hope you can all see in a sec. Hold on a sec. Okay, I hope you can all see le jeu de la bombe, okay? So here it's an interactive game that I use as well. So it's all animated. I'm more than happy to send it to you. So you've got questions that are worth 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 points. You've got, when you get a bomb, you lose all your points. You can steal 5 points from the other team. And you've got one where the points change from one team to the other. And again, by doing that, it means that everyone's got a chance to win. And the kids then are really motivated to contribute and have, you know, and have a go. So here, what they need to do, they just need to pick a number. So let's say that someone say numéro 2. So you would click on numéro 2, and that's going to take you to a question, okay, to a sentence. So, je voudrais prendre une année sabbatique, and they need to translate that in English, okay? So they will say, I would like to take a gap year, and that will give them, so we are swapping points between the team. But as you can see at the bottom of the screen, there's a little house. So if you click on the house again, that will take you back to the first slide. Number 2 will disappear, so you know that this one has been used. And then it will be the other team. So the other team might pick number 10. So you go on number 10. Je voudrais travailler comme avocat. C'est un métier à responsabilité. They would translate it, okay? And then here, that will give them 4 points for this one, okay? And then it goes on and it goes on, you know, and sometimes you've got a bomb where all the words disappear and so on, okay? So that's all the different activities that you can use for translation, and there are many, many more, but obviously we're running out of time. So as I said, here is my Twitter, my email. If you've got any questions, so some of you, I'm just looking at the questions that you have put. Yes, I'm more than happy to send you the PowerPoint if you email me. I will do that, but yeah. Okay, how do I insert a dice? So you can find some interactive dice online. So what I do is that I've just downloading them and then incorporated in my PowerPoint, and they are interactive, so they will work on any of your slides. The same thing, if you get a copy of that PowerPoint, then you can have that dice and you can make it as, you know, the dice that you've seen in a screen that was really big, and then the small one in the other one, it's exactly the same one, but you can make it as big or as small as possible. Okay, so yeah, you've all put the same. So yeah, I'm more than happy to share the resources. If you've got any other questions, please put them in the Q&A. And thank you very much for watching. Have a wonderful Sunday evening, and good luck for the rest of the term. And thank you very much.